Welcome back to the Stressful to Successful podcast with your co-host Tiffany Chasson and myself, Jaden D'Amico. And today we have a special guest by the name of Brent Wilsey of Wilsey Asset Management, located in San Diego, California.
Okay.
Brent, would you mind introducing yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. I'm Brent Wilsey, president of Wilsey Asset Management.
Awesome. So can you please explain to us what your company does?
What we're an investment advisory firm registered with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. So we don't sell product. We don't, have back-end charges. We do strictly fee-based advisory. Now, we're also different, too, because we're an advisory firm, but we also have a fee-based financial planner on staff who does financial planning for a fee. Not for free, for a fee.
You hear that?
He does not sell any products like insurance or annuities. It's all fee-based planning, so it's unbiased. He really does put together the best financial plan for people.
What is financial planning?
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that because a lot of people think, I'm a financial planner, and they sell mutual funds. That's not financial planning. Financial planning is where he listens to what your goals, your desires are, understands what your cash flow needs are, understands your tax situation, your estate situation, and puts together a good financial plan to make sure that your wishes happen throughout your lifetime so you have your financial goals met. Many people get to retirement and have no idea what their plan is, have no idea if they can retire. So that's what a good financial planner does, and many times it takes hours to put together a good financial plan for you. So a financial plan is just like you wouldn't build a house without the plans. Well, financial planning is putting those financial plans together so you have a good retirement when you retire.
That makes a lot of sense. So for your more so the asset part of your company, do you take age into account when you're dealing with investments?
Yes and no. I mean, we manage about $600 million in assets for clients and businesses. Our account minimum is $100,000, which I've kept for, probably over 30 years now because I like doing what I do. I like helping people out. We will waive that $100,000 for somebody that is maybe younger that really has a true commitment to investing. Say they only have $25,000. As long as they make a commitment, which is not in writing, but just a verbal commitment that I'm going to set this up and I plan on adding to it each month $100, $500, $1,000, whatever it is, as long as they're committed to true investing, we'll waive the account minimum with a monthly investment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool. So what did you learn about everything that you know today? How did you start?
Well, I probably started learning when I was 2 years old. But I kind of joke about that a little bit, but in reality, I've always been one that I would pick mentors throughout my life. I'd watch somebody. I remember the first one that I started looking at as a mentor was Steve Warren. He was my sister's husband, brother, and he was just a hard worker. He worked hard all the time, and he's always thinking and so forth. And I thought, gosh, I want to be like that guy. That was probably my first mentor. And I think in
How old were you at that time?
I was probably like 12 years old.
Okay, so at 12 years old, your mind is gearing towards of like wanting to learn more.
Wanting to learn more.
That's a young age to do that. Most people don't figure this out until they're like in their mid-20s, give or take.
And I will say, and I like the theme of the show. That's why I'm doing it, because it's so important to have mentors and people like what did they did. Because I think in today's society, so many young people are just kind of drifting like a sailboat without a rudder, not sure what direction to go. And that's why having a mentor, it's like, wow, they're successful. What are they doing? And that's what I started doing. And I will tell you, the key is, we'll probably come back to this many times, it really is hard work. You've got to work hard throughout your life. And that's what I noticed with that. My first mentor was hard work. He worked all the time, and he loved working, and he did very well. So that was a start back when I was about 12 years old.
What are some quotes that your mentor that kind of repairs in your mind? I want to say something of that my mentors have told me previously. One is, why be the employee when you can be the employer? Mm-hmm. That's a good one. And of course, one that I've made myself is, nobody got anywhere in life without help.
I can't remember anything specific that he said that I can pull out right now.
Sure.
And it was just watching what he did, that he loved his work. I remember he didn't like lazy people. I've seen that through my lifetime. Trying to get rich by being lazy is a path to nowhere. It really takes hard work. And hard work means you're working 50, 60 hours a week. And I will say, and you know, many people ask me, and I'm going to go off on tangents, so if you want to pull me back in, please do so. But where people say, wow, I love the big house you have and all the Lamborghinis and the cars and so forth. What do you do? Because I want to do what you do so I make a lot of money. I say that's a path to nowhere. You have to love what you do, because if you love what you do, you'll be successful. But if you do what you want to do just to make money, you're going to fail, because you'll never have enough money. I remember at one point, gee, if I could just make $100,000, I'd be so happy. Well, I got to $100,000. If I can just make $250,000, I'd be happy. If I could just get to $1 million, I'd be happy. Well, I've surpassed all those, and the money never makes you happy. What makes you happy is the successes you have over time by doing that because you love what you do. Never work just for the money. Work because you love doing it, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Literally contributing to society.
Exactly.
No,
yes.
I mean, McDonald's feeds people. They're also in real
Yeah.
estate. You know?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. And you're really helping people set themselves up for success.
Right.
And their ending ages even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's building generational wealth that they can then pass down to their children and their grandchildren and so on and so forth.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. I just did a commentary. I do commentaries on KOSI, the local news here. I've been doing that for 6 years on Sundays. It's a great station. And I just talked about Monopoly. When I was a kid, in summer, when I was like probably in middle school, summers, there'd be like 3, 4 of us, we'd play Monopoly. And I talked on the news about how I did that and how I was successful by investing all the time. I loved buying the railroads. I loved buying the utilities. And when I get the property, I'd want to get the property, not the boardwalk on the high side, but on the other side of the board was a little bit lower, and then buy all 3 units and then build them up to hotels. And all my friends like, oh, they don't have all that cash. They have $3,000-$4,000 in cash. Well, look at Brent. He's got no cash. Well, eventually, I became very wealthy because I had the properties, I had the railroads, I had investments, not cash. Cash is the worst thing to invest in long term. You should be investing in good quality equities or real estate, whatever it is, and say, where will I be 5, 10, 15 years down the road, not where will I be next year.
So at a young age, you've understood the differences between an asset and a liability.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, and that's so important when you bring that up. The assets are important to have. And liability, debt is not always bad as long as it's used for a good thing and it's reasonable. Then you got to be reasonable with that debt.
So I've read some books myself. I know we're getting off topic on the list
Yeah,
here.
you direct it. You guys are the hosts.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes.
Okay. Robert K. Love the guy. In his book, he speaks about, well, I kind of took it out of tone a little bit. I wanted some toys, right? But what is a truck that I have that I'm driving here with if it's not making me any money, right? So you make money with that truck. You want a boat, for an example. Right. So I own quite a few boats. What do I do with those boats in the summertime? I rent them boats out. You know what I mean? They're already paid off now. Right. So would you be opposed to something to give an advice along that route, or if someone came to you and said this, what would you do?
And over my life, I've also wanted to enjoy my life. You've got to balance between having good, and my thing's been cars. I've loved cars since I was like 5 years old. I've always been in love with cars. Well, I wanted to buy nice cars and cars are not your best investment, especially short term. As I said, I do have probably like $1 million car collection now, which will appreciate in value because they're Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, things of that nature. But when I got them, I looked at where will they be 5, 10 years down the road. Mm-hmm. But that was my passion, as opposed to going out and buying a car like, and I think Corvettes are a pretty good deal, but they're not going to appreciate. Try to find something that the demand is high and the supply is low. That will do well. But I've always said for people, don't just put everything away. Like Monopoly was easy because you didn't have, vacations. You didn't have things you're going to blow money on. In real life, it's a little bit different. So I say, save and invest at least 10% of what you make. And you'll be fine by the time you hit retirement, which again, if you're 25 or 30 years old, oh my gosh, that's so far away. Well, when you talk to people at my age, they'll say it goes by extremely quick. I still think I'm 25, but that was like 40 years ago. It goes by so quickly. So you've got to think about
Yeah.
how time passes, and you want to enjoy your life. So, but make sure you save at least 10% of what you make, no matter what, and 10%, because if you're 25 and you're making, we'll say, $40,000 a year, that's $4,000. But if you're then 35 and now you're making, we'll say, $100,000, well, now you're saving $10,000. So it will naturally go up, and make sure it's invested so you earn about 8 to 10%. We tell people that's a reasonable return.
So live below your means for, in a sense, 3 years. Say you're making $100,000 a year. Rent a room, suffer for 3 years, for an example. Save up all you can. Don't necessarily eat PB&J. That's bad for health every single day.
Right.
People say, I've done this.
You'll die before you hit 65. Right?
You had some ramen noodles in there, not just PB&J. Come on, don't kid yourself. But sacrifice.
Right.
Sacrifice 3 years of your life, and that's, say you make $100,000 a year, $1,000 a month rent. That's $12,000 a year after taxes. Let's say you're saving around, and all the fun, let's say around $50,000 to $70,000 in that entire year, give or take. Let's say 50.
Right.
You
can do that. My concern with that is not everybody's going to be able to do that. Some people are going to fail. They're going to do it for 6 months and say, I hate this. I'm not going to do this.
Challenging.
It's mentally challenging. And discipline is very important in life. So that's important. But you still have to be a realist as well. And what happens when you try to do too much, you'll fail, and then you go the other side. Then they start taking on debt and everything, all these bad things. So you want to be reasonable and understand what your discipline is and what you can handle. And if you can't handle it, then pull back a little bit. And that's why I say 10% is pretty reasonable. And I will tell you a story. When I was probably, I think I was probably in my mid-20s, very tough time I went through, going through a divorce. All I could afford, I remember this, going down to the McDonald's in Mission Valley because they had a special on Coke, hamburger, and fries for $1. It's like, good, okay, I can afford that. I can do that. And I did that for quite a while to get through the tough times, because everybody is going through tough times. But you got to get through those tough times, so the good times will come if you do that magic thing I talked about. I say it a lot, is work hard. I worked real hard during that time frame to get me out of that situation. And don't depend on other people. You've got to do it yourself. People will help you, but don't say, well, no one's helping me. Help yourself, and people will help you a little bit.
How did you get to being? You've done a lot. Just walking into your office, I see you all over your wall, shaking hands with some really, really amazing people. I won't name any of them, but
yeah, somebody took down because some people said, "Ooh, he's too far to the right." It's like, I'm really not. So, I mean, there's some I took down. I can show you after air.
Yeah, please do. So, how did you get? I mean, is it just being out there and talking to people, and you saying hi to everybody, and then also having, building your business up to where it's in a sense respected, to where people want to have you on their AM 760 radio station, on the news? How do you get these? How did this become? How? It's very interesting.
There's so many different avenues I could go down with that one there. How did I meet rich people? And one of my goals was to someday go to the White House and meet the president.
Yes,
I've done that. I won't say what president it is because I don't want to offend anybody. Could be a good one, could be a bad one. I don't know. But I did that because I wanted to do that. Well, how do I do that? I found out how to do it. And the thing is, you start hanging out with people that are going to be in that area. And then how do we do it? I've been to, I went to the White House. There's other places I've been as well. And it's from hanging around with the right people. And I hate that term, hanging around, but just popped out. So we'll use it anyways. If you're around people that are going to bring you down, say, oh, you can never do that, you can never do that, you're probably not going to do it. But if you start going around people that are in that direction you want to go, then go with those people and find out what it takes in my situation on that goal. How do I get to meet the President of the United States in the White House? How do I do that? Well, I figured out how to do it, and I did it. So,
can you share with how you did it?
It was just, again, going to the right events. Again, I'm trying to not make this a political show, so I'm trying to stay with that. But I was hanging around that political party, and then you start saying, okay, well, I like that person. Start helping out, either volunteering, donating, whatever it may take to help that person become successful.
Here's one thing that I've actually had said this to people myself as well, because you hear it all the time, and it is a known fact.
Right.
I mean, here's proof, right? Well, I'm not. Let's say someone will say, "Well, I'm not there. I'm just a busser at a restaurant." For an example, how am I supposed to hang out with Fox 5, or how am I supposed to hang out with
Right.
someone and so forth? I mean, how is no one exactly? They think that no one of that level would kind of want to even look in a sense of that direction. But I feel as though if you have the mindset for it, for one, and you're driven, you have a goal to
Right.
get there, and you have a plan, not just a dream.
Right.
Dreams are dreams. You sleep on them. Right. Plans are things you can initiate action for. Right. Then that would, in a sense, catch the eye of somebody else who you would like to meet.
Right.
Maybe they could see themselves in you.
Right. And actually, I mean, I start off, I grew up, we were very poor, lived on a dead-end street, and I remember when I was about 10, 12 years old, my grandmother, my father, and so forth, I didn't do very well in school. Well, maybe he can get a trade or something. They were really worried that I was going to be a loser, I'd like a better term. And it's just like, I didn't know it then, and you talk about a dream. A dream can start, but it has to develop from a dream into a plan. Where you're saying, well, how am I going to get there? You mentioned the busser. Well, how can he do it? He's a busser. Well, what he has to do is invest a little bit in himself. He has to make sure. Now, again, you call me a day when don't have a tie on. Usually I wear a tie. I always dress up because you never know who you're going to run into. And even though I didn't wear a tie today, I still want to dress nicely. The busser doesn't have the salary that I have, but he should have, or she should have, a nice outfit when they go to a certain place that they can fit in. And one thing I've always believed, and now currently everybody dresses down a little bit more. One thing I learned a long time ago, I'd rather be the guy that shows up that's overdressed than the guy that's underdressed. You go to an event like, oh my gosh, everybody's in suits and ties, and here I am in a t-shirt. You look like a loser.
You look like that guy that showed up in a t-shirt.
Yeah. And nobody wants to associate with you. So I've always wanted to be the guy that overdresses. My wife is the same way. Say, gosh, you two always look nice, because we never know now if we know that we're not going to show up in a suit and tie if it's a beach party, so be real. But again, if you're trying to get into something, make sure you have an outfit that will make you appear better than just show up, in jeans and a t-shirt. You're not going to impress anybody.
I love that.
I feel like it's also really great to know, because a lot of people our age kind of think that less effort is better. It's been the trend.
Honestly.
Where it's like, how can I do this fast? How
Right.
can I make this much money fast? How can I get to my goals fast, or
Following
with the least amount of time?
Following the trends on social media.
Well, it's like, people see it on TikTok, or they see it on YouTube. They see these people that blow up and then, buy a big house or whatever it may be. But people are blowing through this money. They don't know work ethic. A lot of them don't necessarily have the discipline to keep the money,
Right.
like invest it properly.
Right.
So it's just very refreshing to hear that hard work does pay off. It's not just, this instant success that people just see online.
And many times what you'll see, those people that are successful, unfortunately, they did it through debt. They borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and eventually it's a house of cards. It's going to collapse on you. So just to try to be successful very quickly, and there are people that, Elon Musk, very smart guy, came out with a Tesla. Obviously, he's going to make billions of dollars. That's not the norm. The normal person has to work hard and be smart about what they do and be patient. And I think it's because, and I'll say your generation grew up to where you watch a TV show, and with a half hour, wow, the person went from being poor to being a multimillionaire in a half hour. Well, we have this expectation that it shouldn't take that long. And that's why it's so important to understand that you have to love what you're doing, because it's not going to happen overnight. That's very rare. It does happen. If it does happen, great, congratulations, happy for you. But it's not going to happen for most people. So be patient and say, where will I be 10, 15, 20 years from now? And don't get impatient, but love what you do, and you'll do very well at it.
So when you get successful, on your own means of successful for a person, where you're generating income that you have not had or seen in your account before, in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather them to have them come see you to help manage their money? Is it, or do you feel as though that would be a good idea?
I'm not sure if I understand the
Sure.
question.
Sure. So say a person wins a lottery, in a sense, or becomes has no financial background whatsoever. Things get, I say lottery lightly, right? Become successful in some such of a way. Would you rather them come and see someone like you to help manage their money, in a sense, and put that in correct investments?
Yeah, and the problem, unfortunately, people win the lottery. I forget the stats, but they're pretty high. Most people, when they win the lottery, 10 years later, they're broke again because they've never had that money. They didn't work for it, and they didn't know how to handle it when it came in. If someone did win the lottery, I would love to have them come in and talk to us. We would explain to them how to do it. They probably can be disenchanted. I tell people, if you win $1 million, keep the $1 million. And if you want something out of it, maybe take 2%, maybe 3% from it each year. So you get a little bit of benefit, but let the principal grow for you. It won't grow as fast because you're taking some of it. If you can let the whole thing grow for you, you'll be much better 10, 20 years down the road. But people have this, I want it now attitude. And that's very dangerous because you want it now, you're going to lose it. That's what's going to happen.
What do you think about cryptocurrencies? And are you advising any of your clients to contribute to those, or?
Cryptocurrencies are very hot right now. They've been hot for a few years now. Why? Because they're going up like this. Cryptocurrency is speculating. And people have tried to say, oh, it's not, it's the next currency and so forth. I mean, we could do a whole thing on economics of why cryptocurrency will not work because governments have to control their currency. Like in 2008, if cryptocurrency was they say, oh, it's going to replace the dollar, Bitcoin. If that was the case back in 2008, our economy, our country would have crashed. The reason why we didn't crash was because the government could manage the money supply so we didn't crash. And that's why cryptocurrency will never be the main source of any major country for their currency. So right now, it's speculation. It goes up, it goes down. It's a gambling chip. There is nothing backing up. I know people get pissed off at me when I say that, but it's a reality. There is nothing backing. When I ask people, well, what is it? They really can't say what it is. When I talk about the dollar, I say the dollar is backed by the taxing authority of the United States government. What backs cryptocurrency? Again,
I don't know.
No one knows. And there's nothing that backs it up. That what backs it up is what the next person will pay for it. And that's what backs it up. As long as people want it and the demand is there, it will go up. Once we have a recession, which we will have another one again, we've avoided it for the last couple of years, but once we have that recession again, people get tighter, and all of a sudden they don't want to see their cryptocurrency move down, which will happen because the demand will dissipate. It will disappear. And the other thing with cryptocurrency is that when I ask people what you want in a currency, they want stability. You don't have that with a Bitcoin. Bitcoin moves up and down in a week, maybe 5, maybe 10%. Yeah. If you're a business owner, you don't want to take a Bitcoin today, and then tomorrow you go to the bank, all of a sudden you lost 5% on that. Well, that was my profit. Now to make a profit. So you want stability when it comes to currency, not a currency that you think goes up forever.
So what would be a great thing for our listeners and our viewers to invest in? There is a recession coming. It's creeping on us, right? And if we're not already in it.
I will push back on that, but go ahead.
No. What would be a good move to make financially, of course?
I mean, we like to invest in things that we see doing well going forward. And people talk about AI. We're not investing in the AI companies. We're investing in companies that will do well because of AI, that will benefit from AI.
So research.
Research, I mean...
research the businesses that you
research the businesses, and we buy, and we tell people, if you invest with us, you go to the party, and you want to talk about your investments, you'll be in the corner by yourself. Because nobody wants to hear about the food companies, the financial companies, the insurance companies, the transportation companies. They want to hear about Bitcoin. They want to hear about AI. That's not how you make money long term. You make money long term by being very cautious. And I tell people, if you can average 10% per year, your money will double every 7 years. So if you invest $100,000, 70 years from now, it's $200,000. 14 years, it's now $400,000. 21 years, it's now $800,000. That means you never added to it. So you've got to be patient, because when you try to do things, and I've seen this happen in our other office, the guy that actually the guy that actually did the paintings on the wall, he lost all his money in real estate. How can you do that? He over leveraged. He got too impatient. You've got to be patient. And there's so many sidetracks out there, like investing in AI, like investing in cryptocurrencies. And remember just a few years ago, electric vehicles, oh, that's going to be the way to go. Was it Rivian? Was it high? Was it high like 140, 150?
I knew that thing. I'm on a member of a Facebook group. It's like day trading or whatever.
Right.
And Rivian, you know, and I'm just like, guys, it's $100 right now for a buy, and it was like $80-something, $100 on the opening, right? And I was telling them, I was like, there's no way I'm buying this thing. It's going to shoot down to $30 or $40 within the next few months, if that weeks.
Right.
And what did it do?
And and it happens over and over again. But people always think, oh, this time it's different. Cannabis.
Well, because Tesla. So Tesla shot up rather quickly.
Yeah.
And so they think, oh, it's another Tesla.
Yep.
We don't know. I don't even know the CEO of Rivian. I've never heard of the guy.
Right.
There's not much backing the business. Right.
Right.
It's just kind of like new. It's here. It's shiny, but
it's exciting.
Yeah.
And you're right. Everybody wants the Teslas of the world.
Yeah.
Happened with cannabis. Cannabis came out. Oh, this is gonna be the best thing ever. And a company called Tilray.
Yeah. I invested so much into that.
Went up to like 170.
And now it's $2.11.
Right. Exactly. Happened with that. Happened with 3D printers. It happens over and over again. But people get sucked into the hype. And they think they're going to make money quick, and they don't. In the meantime, we're just buying, again, the food companies, the insurance companies, which benefit from many of these things, you know. But that's how you make money. You want to make sure you hold on to that money. And if you're making 10% on average per year over the long term, you're doing very well.
Are you mostly investing in mutual funds, or is it more so like specific stocks?
We don't like mutual funds because mutual funds, by the way, you're going to pay a fee for the mutual fund on top of maybe a management fee. So there's another fee there you want to be careful of. But mutual funds kind of do what we do. But the problem with the mutual fund is that there's things called net redemptions, which means when things go down, people can pull out. Even though you stayed the course, you lost money because of the fact that the manager had to sell those positions. So that's not a very, very good thing to happen. People won't realize it until it goes down. But we like to buy individual companies. We call them companies, equities. The term stock is like, oh, it's got a bad name to it. But equity is the same thing. And what does equity mean? Ownership. You own a small piece of a large company. I'll give you a company that we've owned. We've owned it for probably close to 15, 16 years now, maybe longer. Allstate Insurance. How boring is that? Well, Allstate Insurance over that time frame has grown. I think we paid somewhere around $30 a share for it. I think it now trades around $170. Pays a dividend. The other thing people don't realize with these dividend payers, who cares? 3% dividend. Who cares about that? Companies increase their dividends many times over the years. We have companies in the portfolio we bought 10, 15 years ago. At the time, we were getting a 3% yield. Based on what we paid for it on that company, we're now getting a 12, 14, maybe a 15% yield because every year the company increased the dividend by a little bit. Patience and long-term investing.
I love that. So you are basically, you have an investing show on the radio. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that. And you also mentioned to us before the show that you do video as well.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the radio.
Sure.
I started doing radio back, I think it was in 1993. And we talked about going out and meeting people.
Yes.
I was at this party, and it's kind of like a business event. I shouldn't call it a party. It's a business event. And I remember this person from the radio show, gone now, called K-pop. And it was an older audience, an older demographic, which when you're investing, be honest, those are the people that have most of the money, the older people. So I was talking to this woman. She goes, have you ever thought about doing radio? I go, no, not really. She goes, you want to try? I go, yeah. And I knew at the time, because I was just starting out investing, that there was other advisors that had done well with radio shows. And I said, well, this makes sense because now instead of talking to 2 people at a time, I can talk to many people. Funny story here. So I was married to my second wife. And I did my first show on a Sunday at, I think it was like 7:30 in the morning, half-hour show to 8 o'clock. And I come home and I go, honey, how'd I do? She goes, you suck. I go, oh, well, I guess I got some work to do. But I kept doing it. And I'd watch people like Ted Leitner, who's now retired. I'd watch other people. What are they doing? And I built the show to say, what do people want to hear? You know, and they want to hear a little bit of entertainment, but they want to get a little bit of knowledge as well. So I developed that, and we've been doing the show now. What's that? Probably 30 years now. Over 30 years I've been doing that show.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and now we're on 3 stations. Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. We're on Sunday 98.1. 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. We're on the Fan 97.3, and that's rebroadcast again on Kogo on Sundays at 10 o'clock. So it's run on 3 different stations. Yeah.
What about AM 760?
AM 760, that's where I got my big start, was AM 760. And I was there for a long time. Unfortunately, the AM 760 was bought, I forget who bought them, and they just dropped me because of the new owners, like, nope, changing the whole everything.
Wow.
So that's when the Fan, the sports show, and I thought, this is a sports station. It's really going to work? And it's like, it has worked very well. We had this one guy came in, became a client, and he goes, this was the best thing ever. I get sports, and then I get some investment business news on Saturday mornings. This was the best thing ever. We have gotten quite a bit of business from the Fan. People love it. And we're the only other talk show other than sports on the Fan.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Look at you go.
I also think it's really cool advertising too, that it's very unconventional for a lot of people.
You've seen the gym commercial, haven't you? Yeah, and that's the other thing too, when you're doing a business, and you got to be careful because you can't be silly, but you want to have something that's memorable. And you're all too young, probably you're too young, to remember the Wendy's commercial with the old lady. Where's the beef? Now, anybody that's old will remember that. And it was this thing that this lady, and Wendy's was talking about how big their burgers were. And she had this burger, and she opens up, there's a little tiny hamburger bun in there, or a hamburger. Where's the beef? And that became so big with everybody, like, where's the beef? So when you do a commercial and advertise, you want something that's memorable. The gym commercial, again, we're in suits, we're in the gym, we got people working out behind us, people haven't seen the commercial. And, you know, we're talking about investing, but how at the end we do and I always try to have at the end something that's going to be catching. I'm curling, I'm not going to tell you how much it is. They were real weights. I'm curling the weights. Chase is curling a dumbbell, and we say, we can handle the weight. We're talking about investing, because investing can be hard. I've been in the grocery store walking, and I'll see people like this guy comes over and starts curling the weights. I know who you are. You know?
I love that. Yeah.
It's memorable. And I've had other people complain about it. Oh, that's so silly and stuff, and I don't think I would invest in it. I said, that's fine. You know, you're not going to please everybody.
But they're talking about you.
Exactly.
So.
They talk about it. They won't forget it. So we're trying to do another commercial now, and I won't give you the concept of the commercial. We're having problems because we can't find skaters. We need ice skaters. We need like six ice skaters that will pay them like $200 to be in our commercial to ice skate. And then we have another commercial we think is going to be as good as the gym commercial. But we need ice skaters. Do you guys ice skate?
I have friends who do.
Let us know.
Teams and all that fun stuff.
What kind of teams?
Like she's like a Russian skater.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Is she over 18?
She's here in San Diego. Yeah, she's over 18.
And maybe she knows it, because we'd love to have. And our commercials air about 850 times in San Diego TV. We also do streaming now, so that they get a lot of exposure. We'll pay them $200 for like 4 hours work. But I want to get this commercial done because I think it's going to stand out as much as a gym commercial. So watch for it.
Would you be opposed to a gentleman ice skating?
We would like to have
or two, her father and maybe her brother.
We need 3 men and 3 women.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, we try to be very balanced.
They do ice hockey, so they've been on the skates for a minute.
Right. Yeah.
They're fun.
But I mean, you needed them to
Twirl.
ballerina.
Well, we just need ice skaters, and again, I don't want to give away the theme of the commercial,
sure.
but yeah, I mean, if we need 3 men. Sounds like you know some women. I mean, we would love to have them. And again, they'll be seeing quite a bit on TV.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
I'll get back to you on that one.
All right, appreciate that.
So you were mentioning also that you've been on a bunch of talk shows. How did that transpire? And tell us about that.
It is kind of because I've been on the Dr. Phil show twice.
How? Why? What?
How? Why? What? I do have a publicist who we have an arrangement. He'll call me, and he said, okay, now this is a little bit different than the investing side. Dr. Phil is looking for business people to talk about quiet quitting. Have you ever heard of quiet quitting?
No.
Okay. Quiet quitting is something that the younger generation is doing to where they won't quit the job, but they stop working at the job.
They just sort of leave.
They don't leave. They check out mentally. They show up to work, but they don't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they've quit working, but they're still showing up to work. And so we had, I think, 3 or 4 people. And it's, if you Google Dr. Phil and quiet quitting, it comes up. So I was on that. My son was on it. And we talked about what we're talking about now is hard work. And these other people, the thing that kind of got me, well, you can't buy a house working at McDonald's. And I said, well, you never could before either. McDonald's is where you start working. It's where you learn about dealing with people, learn how to work hard, and you progress up. You're not going to buy a house. I couldn't buy a house when I was like 20 years old. You got to work hard if you want to buy a house. So, but they had those excuses. And, well, if they paid me more, I'd work harder. No, that doesn't work that way. You work hard, then you get paid more, you know? So, and then that parlayed into, and then my publicist called me and goes, now this is a different type of show. They really liked you on the show. They liked you on air, but we know you have high-end cars, and they want to talk about speeding, and we know that you like to speed. I go, yeah. Police don't watch this, do they?
I don't know.
Well, they saw on Dr. Phil anyway. So, but I showed my son, both my sons, how to drive over 100 miles an hour because they're gonna do it. So let's learn how to do it right.
Yes.
And where to do it. So that was my theme. And my publicist told me, he said, Dr. Phil is going to beat up on you. I said, that's fine. I get it. And it's funny because that day I was supposed to go up to L.A. and I had COVID. And I felt like crap. And so they go, all right, well, you can do it from your garage. We'll send somebody out. We'll actually do it from the garage. So I did it. I remember I got up. I think we recorded at 1 o'clock. I got up at 1:45. Went out, did the show for an hour, went right back to bed because I felt like crap. But they beat up on me, and the problem was that if I was in studio, I could have defended myself more. But being remotely, they could just take me off, off air, and I couldn't respond. But I still did it, and it was still fun to do, and I still stand behind. People are going to speed. Kids are going to speed. And rather than think they don't, understand they will and teach them how to do it and when not to do it. People disagree with that, but that's my philosophy.
Well, with about children, I mean, I've read a bunch of baby books. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any kids right now myself. I started a business. I'll tell you about that stuff another day.
Sure.
But I learned that, if you want your children to respect you in a sense, you can't say no all the time.
Correct.
You can't go, no, you can't go out with your friends. No, you can't do this. Because what's going to happen? They're going to sneak out.
Right.
They're going to get their belly button pierced. So on and so forth. Whatever it may be, whatever kids do, right?
He's saying that because my sister's turning 18 tomorrow, and that's where she's stuck.
That's where she's going to go. Oh.
So if you're lenient, if you understand that your house is a mess, I know you told your child to clean it while you're at work, but you understand they were at work too mentally. They were at school all day.
Right.
If they get home and your house is still messy, don't yell at them and shout at them because you had a stressful day. Sit with them and say, hey, what the heck, man? Why is the house messy? You have an okay day? What's going on?
Right.
Be on that level with your kids, and of course, be with them when they're on that level in the car.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love how you said that.
Yeah. And teach them. I mean, that's a great thing about kids is teach them, have lessons for them. And I'll never forget, I have 4 kids, and I love my youngest daughter, but she was the toughest. She was very hard to work with. She was very messy. And so I said, you need to pick up your room. Parents hear that all the time. So it's like, okay, fine. She's not going to do it. So one day when she was at school, I went into her room. I emptied out her closet, the drawers, put everything in the middle of the room. I said, okay, now you can start over. Dad, you're so mean. But she never forgot it. And again, she realized that I was serious about it. And I think today, unfortunately, sometimes parents just give up. And the great thing about raising kids is it's repetition. You've got to do it over and over again. But you're right. You want to be with them and not just be the mean parent. And people say, oh, I want my kids to be friends with me. No, they're not going to be your friend. You're the parent. You're there for a reason to help them become better than you are. So.
Yes. So when did you land your first client, and how'd that go?
When did I land my first client? It was probably, I worked at a company called Food Maker Jack in the Box, and I was an accountant there.
Okay.
And so I realized that I liked the numbers, but I didn't like going to the office and sitting there at the desk every day and just dealing with numbers. I like people. I want to talk to people. So I was there for 3 years. They let me go. It's like, Brent, you're great, but you know what? You're more busy talking to people. I mean, I know the executives at there. I'd go down and talk to the executives. You're just not quite in the right job. So I got fired from that job, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go out, and I think I'm going to use my accounting background to manage money. So I called people I knew, and I believe she was my first client. So I got her because I was 83. So probably about 1984, I remember going out to talk to her and her husband, and they became clients. Her husband has since passed away, but she is still a client today. And that's all through customer service, from doing the right things for people, not buying cryptocurrencies and making a millionaire tomorrow, but growing that money slowly over time.
That's awesome. So did you start out on your own with your own company after you decided you wanted to get into asset management, or did you work for another company?
No, I first went on my own for 2 years, and that's when I was going down to the McDonald's on Mission Gorge Road because all I could afford was $1 meal, because it was very tough at that time frame. And I remember it was really difficult. And then I got approached by a bank in 1985 and said, we have this new concept of having brokers or advisors inside the bank. Would you like to consider it? And I said, yeah, I'll interview for it. Well, it worked out pretty well. It was brand new at the time. I mean, now every bank you go into has a broker advisor in there. But I was one of the first ones back in 1985 to do that. And it worked out pretty well. I worked hard at it. I remember I would work Monday through Saturday. Bank was open Saturday morning from 9 to 1. I was there 9 to 1. Whenever the bank was open, I was there 7 days a week. I'd work. So,
did you learn a lot from your clients?
not from the clients. One thing I did learn from that company, and people may remember Great American Bank, which has since gone bankrupt in the last real estate recession, back in the 90s. They went bankrupt. But I learned a lot from the company on how to present, which is very important. You have to know, because you know your product very well, but someone else may not. So I learned how to put together a presentation to help people understand more of what I'm talking about. And that was a big thing for me, because now, I mean, we have a great presentation. It works very well. It gives you, it's kind of like if you had, you want to go from here to New York. If you don't have a roadmap, you don't know where to go. You might be traveling north when you're supposed to be going east. So it taught me how to do a good presentation. Anybody comes into our office to be an investment client, even friends, they have to go through the investment presentation so they understand the concept of what we're doing. And that's something I learned early in my career from this company, was have a presentation.
Everyone's a different learner. Everyone pays attention differently as well.
Yep.
So I love that.
Yep.
It's brilliant.
And again, I get so frustrated, and I've had people come in, try to, sell me something, do something, and they have no plan, no presentation. They just start talking. It's like, what are you talking about? They have no direction. They're just bouncing all over the walls. And I generally won't do anything with them because I don't understand what they're trying to get to me. If you're trying to sell, make sure you present something to people that's understandable, and you have a direction of how you're getting there so they can follow you.
So I had an interesting question. So there's been a few global crises since you've been in asset management. There's like the Black Monday crash of 1987, the dot-com bubble of 1999, the financial crisis of 2008, and the COVID crisis. How did those impact your business, and which one did you find was the hardest for you?
I would say they've all impacted my business and my mentality differently. I'm not sure if one is more than the other. I will tell you that in 1987, that's when I was in the bank, and I was so happy that we were in bonds, which is I won't say a safer investment, but a different investment in equities. And they're like, wow, I'm so glad, because we didn't go down a lot in 1987. Now, in our presentation that we do, that I put together for people, we show 1987. 1987, people panicked in October because the market fell by 30, I think it was like 34%. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Stocks are so risky. And I'm in the media, but the media is the worst person to look at to understand anything about investing or to become smarter. The media is there not to make you a smarter person. They're there to sell commercials. That's what they're there for. So in 87, October down 34%. Stocks are risky, you shouldn't be in stocks. No one in the media ever told you, had you invested January 1 and sold December 31st in 1987, you made 2% that year. And had you stayed invested in 1988, you'd have made, I think it was another 27%. And then 89, another 12%. So if you panic and you sold in 87, you missed the big run up. And myself at that time, I was still young investing. I was only had about a few years experience. I thought I was in the right place, being very conservative. No, I should have been in equities. And since then, I've realized equities are a far better place to be for the long term. You're going to have more volatility, more ups and downs, but they'll grow better than being too conservative in cash, CDs, or money markets.
So you would say that during those crashes, if you just keep your money there, eventually the market kind of evens out a little bit?
If you have the right quality, if you have good quality real estate, good quality equities, it's got to be good quality, because if you bought junk, it's not going to do very well. And I think you mentioned, that was 87. That was the first one I experienced. I think then you mentioned the tech boom and bust in around 2000. That was another one where I saw these high flyers like Cisco. And I said, gosh, and this is when I knew that you got to understand what you're paying for something. So when we're investing in something, we look at what we're paying for the earnings, the sales, the book value, and the cash flow. This is very important, what you're paying for something. Well, during that time frame, during the tech boom, we said, this is crazy. You got companies trading at 50, 60, 100 times earnings. And people don't realize that when you talk about a PE ratio, which is price to earnings ratio, if it's a 50 PE, it would take you 50 years to get back what you paid for that company. Shake your head. That makes no sense at all.
Shaking my head right now.
Yeah, that makes no sense at all. And during the tech boom, I said, I'm not going to buy those companies. They're too expensive. Oh, you don't get it. You're from the old economy. Earnings don't mean anything anymore, which, I'm scratching my head as an accountant like, what? So a business doesn't make money any longer? But we didn't do it. And I was the dumbest guy in the room. I would do workshops back then. I would have people get up and walk out because you don't know what you're talking about. Well, okay, I'm going to stay the course of buying my food companies, my insurance companies. And so obviously the boom was great. But then the bust came, and people lost, at that time, 50, 60, maybe more % of what they had. And here we are earning our 8, 10, maybe 12% on average by buying these other companies. It's about the staying in that investment if it's quality. And people think they can time the market. Can't time the market. Can't time companies. There was companies that went up. I remember, I think it was an internet company called MSGI. And the media, oh, this guy's a genius, and he's this, and this company's going to do that, and oh, they're doing great. I think the stock went up 800%. Oh, see how smart he is? After the bust happened, it fell by 93%. And very few people probably sold was 800%. Probably a lot of people sold when it fell 93%.
Yeah, when it starts going down.
Yeah.
But doesn't that mean it's on sale?
If you look at what you're paying for the earnings, the book value, the cash flow, and the sales, because if there's value there, then it could be on sale. But if they're over leveraged, they're ready to file bankruptcy, no, there's nobody there.
Research the businesses before
Research the business, understand the business, and that's why they say the accountants someday will take over the world, because the accountants know those numbers. And if they say, oh, well, it's got this product and it's got this and that, and everybody's going there, that's great. I tell people I could fill the parking lot with tons of people if I opened a business and gave away the products. But the key is you got to make a product with that and fill the parking lot. Then you can do well. Find those businesses that do well.
Any suggestions? Well, you've given quite a few.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's just, and they can listen to our radio show, the podcast. I don't think we talk about the podcast yet, but, we do talk about that. And we analyze different companies. And the funny thing, too, is that we only do maybe on an average year, 3 to 4 trades. It's not about how many trades you do. It's not the quantity. It's the quality of what you do. And whenever we invest in a business, I hope we can hold it, like I talked about, I'll pick on the one, Allstate. I mean, which, by the way, now it's not a buy, too expensive. But we're still holding it. And if it drops again in value, which has happened many times over the year, we'll step in and buy more of it. Yeah. So.
Do you primarily invest in stocks, or do you also invest in like real estate? Like, what do you think would be if someone came in and didn't know what to invest their money in, would you normally put most of their investment money into stocks or
Birkin bags?
Birkin bags? what was Birkin bags?
Birkin bags?
Oh, Birkin bags? What are Birkin bags? See, that's your generation.
They're like the fashion currency, I would say, in comparison to like the investment world.
Are they like Birkin socks, the shoe?
They're the most expensive handbag.
You're looking at like $50,000, $100,000 a purse.
Oh, wow.
Because you can't buy them at the store.
Wow.
So if you can buy it at the store, you have to be invited.
Right.
So basically, you can get the bag at the store if you get one for like say $8,000 to $10,000, and then you can sell it for like $80,000.
Okay.
And people are selling them like crazy amounts.
And I've done commentaries on the news about that and on social media. And there's a couple like that. You can make money. The problem is you go to a Louis Vuitton and you see people standing and waiting to go in. It's not going to happen with that. It's unfortunately, there's very few things that, and again, it's always the most important economic concept I learned in my life was supply demand. If supply is low and demand is high, the price will go up. If supply is high and demand is low, the price will fall. It's the most important concept you can learn.
So like Ferrari.
Yeah. That's how they keep their prices high. They don't build a lot of them.
Of course. Brilliant.
And the demand is there. Yeah. So, and I think I forgot your question now. I'm sorry. We got way off track.
Yep.
Real estate. Do you think that's like, what kind of real estate do you recommend people investing in? Because I know a lot of people that I've talked to are interested in like buying condos or duplexes to rent out versus like investing in commercial real estate. Like, what kind of investments do you think are the safest, or do you think have the best return?
Well, there's the safest and the hardest as well.
Which is going to get more return?
They'll be about the same over the longer term. Let me just kind of talk about real estate for a little bit, because I have friends that have done very well in real estate, and you can do very well in real estate. Real estate you can leverage. You can buy here in San Diego now, we'll just make it easy, $1 million property, and you can put down, what, 20%, $200,000, and own $1 million property, make payments on it, rent it out, and so forth. The problem with that, there's a lot of work involved. You also have to find the tenants. And then I will say in California, it's probably the worst place to own rental properties, because the government is so in favor of that person renting your house, and you're the big bad landlord to where you have no rights. And you have to make sure that that person can pay his rent. Well, that's too bad for you. That person's having a hard time. So you have to realize when you go to real estate to that extent, there's going to be a lot of work involved. And also, too, I've had people being sued because they said, well, no, that person, that they can't afford to pay the rent. And they got sued because the person was pregnant or something else. There's so many liabilities now when it comes to doing the real estate. It's not like it was 40 years ago. You buy a piece of property. If the renter couldn't pay, you kick them out. Those days are gone. So it's very hard for real estate. So, and also, too, we got to realize now, real estate's very expensive. Again, we know the concept is to buy low and sell high. But a lot of people have this feeling, well, buy high, and you can hopefully sell higher. There's a financial theory called the better fool theory, to where you hope that the fool is going to pay a higher price than you paid for it, So that's not what you want to do. So in real estate, you can do good at it, but it takes a lot of work. You got to find the tenants. You got to take care of that property. You got to pay taxes, insurance, repairs, all kinds of things. In our portfolio, we have what they call real estate investment trust. And we have two different ones, actually three. We have one that owns casinos. We have another one that owns hospitals. And then another one owns commercial property in what we call the Sun Belt area. 3 different types of real estate. Now, we don't get the benefits of depreciation. We don't have the direct ownership. We've actually hired through a REIT. We've actually hired a professional manager to do that. We'll have the benefit, like on commercial real estate, it's way down right now. All the bad news, we're saying, where will that be in 2 or 3 years from now? We think it'll be much higher. I'm seeing signs already of money coming into these properties that will set things up in 2-3 years. We'll probably do very well with that. In the meantime, on some of these real estate investment trusts, you get between a 6 to maybe an 8% dividend yield. So while you're waiting for it to go up, you get this nice yield. And you know what? I don't have to interview potential tenants. If the toilet overflows, I don't get the phone call. You know, it is so easy to do, but you've got to make sure you're doing the right thing. And when it comes to REITs, there's a thing called FFO, which stands for Funds from Operations, like earnings. For real estate, you take out the depreciation because real estate, you depreciate it, so the earnings look lower, but actually it's doing better because when you sell it, you wipe out that depreciation. So FFO is very important. But then, you don't say, I'm going to be rich on this next week, next month. No. I mean, the one that we have now, and I think we own about 3% of the company, we think we'll do very well. 5-10 years from now, we'll do very well with that. So, again, patience and doing the research, because we check the FFO, we check their debt level, we check their cash flow, where the property's located, what are the properties doing. We've talked with the CEO. We've done all the research. Before we invest in any company, any real estate, it's 10, 15, maybe 20 hours of research to really understand what is that investment. And when we do that as well, we're not looking at why we should invest into it, but why shouldn't we? And that's very important, because if you're looking for a reason not to and you can't find it, it's a good investment. But if you're looking for reasons to invest, many times you make excuses. Well, I'm not worried that I have too much debt. I want to buy this. So it's a bad attitude, and you might buy the wrong investments. Look for why you shouldn't buy an investment or invest in real estate or invest in equities. And if you can't find anything, it's probably a good investment.
That's a really smart way of thinking about it.
Thank you.
I really like that.
Yeah.
So with like commercial real estate, is it mostly like malls you're investing in, or what kind of properties do you find work well right now in the market?
Well, and again, in the real estate that we have, these REITs, we have 3 different ones. The first one, again, I was talking more about was commercial real estate. And there are Sunbelt areas like Texas, I think Florida. I forget the other place they're at. We researched them. And they've got them a good price. They're well rented out. They're increasing the rents. They're doing fine. So that's commercial property. The other one I talked about is hospitals. Now, that one's gone through some difficulty over the past year because they own the largest hospital owner, I believe, in the world, but they hire companies to actually operate the hospitals. Well, a couple of the operators are having some difficulties, so that's caused the REIT to decline in price. We've looked at their cash flow, we looked at the contracts, we looked at everything. We had now probably owned maybe 4, maybe 5% of that company. We've done it a lot. We like that. I personally have bought a lot of it. And I'm not looking for a return tomorrow. In the meantime, I think we are getting about 10% yield on it. But we like the concept because why? Our population is aging. We're getting older. They're going to use more of the hospital services. But right now, they're going through a difficult time. You want to invest in any type of investment when they're going through a difficult time. Because when everything is fine, everything is great, you're going to pay a high price.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you find something a difficult time, and I always call it a short-term problem. If it's fixable, then that's when you buy it, and then be patient.
So recessions are blessings.
Recessions are great. Yeah. If you're an investor and you have the cash. Right?
Yes. So so in a sense, what we should be doing is setting ourselves up for the next recession.
Within reason, yeah. And the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to wait around for the next investment. Put it all in cash. Well, I'm waiting for the next recession, because you're going to miss out.
Yes.
If you can find a good investment and get that reasonable return, it's fine. And actually now in our portfolio, we are sitting on more cash than usual because we can't find anything good to buy. And we're looking. If we find something, we'll buy it. If not, we'll wait until we find something good to buy.
So how do you feel about, there's a gentleman on the internet, of course, he says, I can't remember the dude's name for the life of me, to be honest, but he's like, investing in stocks and in small investments, $25, $100, $800 here and there is, in a sense, pointless, he says. The real money comes in when you can invest your millions. That's when you do see the bigger jumps.
Right. I feel bad he says that, because that's incorrect.
Oh,
and what we do tell people, if they're just starting off and they only have $25, now hopefully, and I'm a big advocate of the 401k of businesses.
Yeah.
If you're at a company and that's all you got is $25, put in your 401k. You get a tax deduction, tax deferred growth, and hopefully your employer matches. Maybe the employer matches that $25. I have people at my company that they're putting in, and based on the way we have the match, they get 100% return as soon as they invest the money because we match it. So if you're working at 401k and you're not investing into it, start today. That's a great way to build wealth, especially when the employer matches. But to turn somebody off and say, oh, unless you have millions, no. I mean, we will start, somebody calls, I'll get a call once in a while on the phone, like, and I tell my accountants 100, and they go, well, all I got is, $1,000. We give them a mutual fund to put it into. I say, well, start with a mutual fund, add to it, and when you get to a certain level, then you can start going into individual equities. But start doing it, and we have a great value fund. Don't ask me the name of it because I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I apologize. But they're out there to where that's what you start off with. And so, no load funds, or don't pay a sales commission. The fees are pretty reasonable, and that's what we get it to.
What do you feel about investing in Roth IRAs? $6,500 a year, right? Some max you can go.
My son, who's 31, and our financial planner, who's about the same age, we go kind of back and forth on this because the Roth I think it's a good investment because why? You put the money in, you don't get the tax deduction, but you get tax-free growth. I will give you the cynical side of how I see things.
Sure.
Okay.
I've been doing this now for over 40 years. I talked about being in the bank. 1985, the government said, you know what? If you make X dollars, we're going to tax half of your Social Security. I remember people coming to the bank yelling and screaming, this is not right. The government was never supposed to tax my Social Security. The government did. So I ask people now, I go, do you trust the government? No one trusts the government anymore, which is a shame to say, but they don't. So what I see happening, you're young, and I have no idea how old you are, but you do very well. You grow your money. And say down the road when you're 65, well, you got now $2.5 million in your Roth IRA. What I'm concerned is the government says, wow, congratulations, you've done a great job. We're going to tax you on that Roth income. You can't do that. You said you were never going to tax it. The government can do what they want to do, and they will tax the wealthy. And it's kind of funny. We want everybody to be wealthy, but the government, when you become wealthy, then they want to hurt you by taxing you more. So
Yeah.
That's why, and I let people make that decision, and then at least when you get to that level and you are successful. Yep, I remember Brent Wilsey back in 2024 said, yep, they're going to tax my Roth. Sure enough, they did, because the government does have a big debt, and that debt will keep growing. And I think the government will always go after people that are successful because that's where the money is.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this the other day. I mean, so I'm 28
Okay.
as of last Monday, and she's 25 as of the 2nd.
You gave your age. I didn't give my age yet. So.
And we were talking about, we were like, how much does the government owe, and how does this all work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're kind of like Googling because we don't really know.
Right.
And I remember back in 2014, I think it was like, I'm going to say a measly 2 trillion, give or take. And now it's 30.8 trillion.
Right.
How does this happen? Who do we owe money to? Who owes us money? How, is there a possible way that you could sum this up?
Sure. It's pretty easy to sum up. I mean, you've heard of T-bills, right? Treasury bonds, treasury notes.
Yes.
Well, that's what the government debt is. That's their mortgage. Oh. Now, whoever buys that, now if you own, right now a lot of people buying T-bills because you get a pretty good yield on them. Well, that's the government debt that you're buying. There was concern before, I would say maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, that China owned a big portion of our debt. I think it was about 10 to maybe 15% of our debt. The concern was we owe them. So fortunately, over time, that debt has come down to where China stopped buying new debt. So we don't owe China anymore. A lot of our debt is now held by our country. It is held by Japanese, other ones. China still does have some as well. That's the debt. Now, I do want to take your mind, put your mind a little bit at ease here. That number is pretty big. It's over $30 trillion. But you also have to look at two things that I talk about. One is the assets, because when you go get a home, they're looking at your assets. Well, how much do you own? Well, the government has assets as well. The government owns parks. They own land. They own buildings, bridges. Their assets are worth a lot more than $30 billion.
30 trillion.
30 trillion. I say
There we
barely.
go.
Yeah, see,
You
you forget that's such a large number. What comes after trillions? Is it zillions?
I am guessing so.
I hope we don't get there.
You might see in your lifetime. I don't think I will. But what you'll see is that it's the assets. Then also to the cash flow. Now for you, that's your salary. For the government, it's called the GDP, gross domestic product. Well, the GDP has been growing as well as the debt has been growing. And I don't want to say we're in great shape because we're not, but we're not in bad shape. Right now, to kind of give you a comparison, it's probably the person that's making $100,000 a year, owns their home, has maybe a couple $100,000 in equity, but yet on credit cards owes $60,000. It's not a great position to be in, but they're not going to file bankruptcy tomorrow. They can pay the debt. Hopefully they're paying the debt down. Or the other thing that can happen is making $100,000 now. Say that a year from now, they owe $65,000, but yet their income that they're making now is $120,000. Their debt went up, but their income went up as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I try to tell people, I mean, I like to work hard. And if we can produce more and work harder, if we can get that GDP to go up faster than the debt, we'll be fine. But we've got to work hard.
We've got to work hard.
The whole country, yeah.
Everyone and together should work hard. So how do you feel as though, when this gets out there for the listeners, what would you suggest everyone does to get,
To work hard?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a normal job, nobody seems to want to work overtime anymore, Mm-hmm. If you're employed, and I tell my employees, if you're busy and you need to work overtime, go ahead, work overtime, work more. I mean, I probably work somewhere around 60 hours a week. Again, it doesn't seem like work because I like doing it. And again, very important to like what you do. But working 40 hours a week, and I remember like my wife's son and my kids, I would tell them, it's like, okay, you sleep 8 hours a night. If you work 8 hours a day, what are you doing with that other 8 hours? Are you being productive or are you being non-productive? At least of those other 8 hours, be productive for 3 or 4. You're going to do very well. You're going to accumulate more. So
yeah, but nowadays for most of those 4 to 6 hours, it's you have your phone out and your fingers going from the bottom to the top of that screen just
right.
constantly.
Well, I also think it's people don't like what they're doing. Most people don't like what
right.
they do,
right.
and when they get home, it's like an escape, or
escape
like living on the weekends.
Yeah.
So if you actually like what you're doing, then at least you're putting in more energy into building something
right.
versus you go to your 9 to 5 and you go home and you live the day over.
Right.
Which I feel like a lot of people have been.
Right.
So that's what this podcast is about. It's interviewing people like yourself who have went through stressful situations
right.
and ultimately came out in a successful situation
right.
or successful outcome.
Right.
But obviously success is very, I guess the word itself, everyone kind of has a different meaning. But honestly, I equate it to happiness
mm-hmm.
as well. Like being happy with what you do. Usually you're more successful if you like it.
Right.
If you're happy, usually people like to be around you. Usually you carry yourself better.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, we haven't gotten into your podcast yet. So tell us a little bit about that.
Please.
Okay. Okay. Well, and I will say the podcast is nothing fancy because what we do is we record the radio show. So what we do is that we have this recording the radio show already, but we know people can't hear it unless they're within San Diego. A lot of people don't get up at 7 or 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So now we have the podcast. If you go to our website, smartinvesting2000.com, you'll see the podcast there. You can go to the radio show, and what happens, you go to the radio show, and then you can click on, it's on Spotify, it's on Pandora, it's on Apple, Google, it's many different places. And you click and listen anytime you want to. So the podcast has made it very easy for people to listen on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock if they want to, or 2 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. They can listen whenever they want to. So the podcast is the radio show that is to be listened to anytime. And we try to get up on that podcast as soon as we can. And we do the radio show weekly. So every week there's a new podcast there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, it really is. So we'd like to kind of close this out.
Sure.
Where can our listeners and our viewers of the world know where to find you? How would they find you? Of course, it's the first website that you just mentioned to us.
Right.
What other websites could they?
I mean, I would say the easiest way to find me is you just Google Brent Wilsey. And there's things that come up there. There's a street named after me in San Diego For a large donation I get at Children's Hospital. It's called Brent Wilsey Place in San Diego. That will come up as well.
Hey, that's so fun.
But, I mean, I'm usually about the first 3 or 4 pages of all the different things we've done in media, print, radio, the street, whatever. And they can just contact me there. I mean, I had somebody from my family that I didn't even know that he was doing a family tree, I guess, and he put in the last name Wilsey, and I came up, and he saw the newsletter there. He signed up for the newsletter, but he goes, I was just trying to get the family together. So when you put in Brent Wilsey and you Google it, it does come up right away.
Wonderful.
And what is your podcast name?
Smart Investing with Brent and Chase.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Smart Investing with Brent and Chase. And this is Stressful to Successful podcast with yours truly and our co-host, Tiffany Chasson. You can find us at stressfultosuccessful.com and available on all platforms as well. And Brent, we really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to get to know us and get to know you.
Well, I had a lot of fun. I hope people got something out of it, and I enjoyed doing this, and we can do it again sometime if you want.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.